It was a quiet night in the small town of Willow Creek. The streets were empty and the air smelled of rain. But one house stood out: Marcus Green's home. It was warm, bright, and full of life. Inside, Marcus was laughing with his little daughter, Mia. They were watching cartoons, unaware that outside, someone was watching them. From across the street, a woman stood in the dark, Karen Lewis, a member of the local homeowners association, or HOA. She hated Marcus. Not because of anything he did wrong, but because he was different. Marcus was one of the few black homeowners in the neighborhood. His house was new, his garden was neat, but to Karen, he didn't fit in. Earlier that week, she had shouted at him for painting his door red. "It's against the community color code," she said. Marcus had calmly told her, "Ma'am, I checked the rule book. There's no such code." But Karen's pride didn't like being corrected. From that day, she started watching him every morning, every evening, that night. She stood in her driveway, clutching something behind her Baca gas can. Her hands were shaking, her eyes cold. The rain began to fall harder, tapping against her umbrella. "He'll learn his lesson," she muttered. Inside the house, Marcus put Mia to bed. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "Daddy's proud of you. Sweet dreams." He went to his study, opened his laptop, and started typing. He was working on a project that could finally get him promoted at work. He didn't know that outside evil was crawling closer. Karen crossed the road, her heart pounding. She poured gasoline along the side of Marcus's house. The smell mixed with the rain, heavy and sharp. She looked around. No one was watching. She struck a match. For a second, the tiny flame danced in her eyes. Then she threw it down. Whoosh. The fire burst to life, crawling up the walls like a living beast. Within seconds, the porch was burning. Karen stepped back, shocked at how fast it spread. The heat hit her face, but she didn't stop. She watched as the flames climbed higher, glowing in the night. Then she turned and ran down inside. Marcus heard the noise, the crackling, the popping of wood. He smelled smoke. "Mia," he shouted. He ran to her room, coughing, eyes burning. The house was already full of smoke. He grabbed her, covered her with a blanket, and rushed toward the door. The fire was everywhere. He couldn't see anything. He tried the back door, it was blocked. The front was on fire. He smashed a window with his arm, ignoring the pain, and jumped out, holding Mia tight. They rolled onto the wet grass, gasping for air. Behind them, his house exploded in a roar of flames. The fire department arrived too late. Everything Marcus owned, his photos, his work files, his daughter's toys, was gone. He sat on the ground, holding Mia, watching the only home he'd ever built burn to ashes. Neighbors came out, whispering. Some offered help. Others just stared. And among them was Karen, pretending to be shocked. "Oh my God," she said, "this is terrible." She even hugged another neighbor, acting innocent. No one suspected her. The police began an investigation. They found traces of gasoline, footprints in the mud, but no suspects. Marcus told them he had no enemies. He didn't know yet that the person who destroyed his life lived right across the street, but fate had other plans. A week later, Marcus was in court not for the fire, but for a lawsuit. His insurance company refused to pay, claiming he broke safety codes. He sat quietly in the courtroom, his lawyer beside him, trying to stay strong for his daughter. Then the doors opened. He looked up, and there she was. Karen Lewis, the woman who burned his house down. Walking into the same courtroom, wearing a confident smile, Marcus froze. What was she doing there? Why was she looking at him like that? The story had just begun. The courtroom was cold and silent, the kind of silence that makes even breathing feel loud. Marcus sat in the second row, holding his file tightly. His lawyer whispered something, but he wasn't listening. His mind was still replaying that night. The fire, the screams, the smell of smoke. Then the door creaked open. Karen Lewis walked in, her heels clicking against the floor. She looked calm, almost proud. Her hair was perfectly styled, her pearl necklace shining under the lights. She walked straight to the witness bench, not as a criminal, but as a witness for the HOA. Marcus's jaw tightened. The same woman who glared at his house every morning was now sitting just a few meters away. The same eyes that once burned with anger now pretended innocence. The judge entered, and everyone stood. "Court is now in session," the bailiff announced. The HOA's lawyer started speaking, claiming Marcus had violated community rules, illegal home modifications, unauthorized painting, unsafe wiring. They said the fire was an accident caused by his own negligence. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. His house had been destroyed by fire, and now they were blaming him for it. His lawyer stood up calm, but firm. "Your Honor, my client followed every regulation. We have documents, receipts, and inspection reports. There was nothing unsafe about his home." Karen sat straight, crossing her legs. Her lawyer nodded at her. "Ms. Lewis, could you please describe what you saw on the night of the fire?" Karen's voice was soft and trembling, fake trembling. "It was around midnight. I was watching TV when I saw smoke. I ran outside and called 911. I tried to help, but it was too late." She sniffed, pretending to wipe tears from her eyes. The courtroom fell silent. Marcus's lawyer frowned. "Ms. Lewis, did you see anyone near the house before the fire?" She hesitated just for a second, then said, "No, I didn't. But Mr. Green had been working with power tools that day. Maybe something went wrong." Marcus wanted to shout, to tell everyone the truth, but his lawyer touched his arm. "Stay calm," he whispered. The judge took notes, looking serious. Every word from Karen sounded believable. She played the role of a caring neighbor perfectly. Sweet voice, sad eyes, fake concern. After the session, Marcus stepped outside the courthouse. The air was heavy. Reporters were already waiting, asking questions. "Mr. Green, do you have anything to say about the allegations?" He didn't answer. He just walked past them, holding his daughter's hand. Across the parking lot, Karen watched him. Her lips curled into a faint smile. She thought she had one, but something unexpected happened the next morning. Detective Harris, the officer in charge of the fire case, called Marcus. "Mr. Green, we found something. Can you come to the station?" Marcus arrived with cautious hope. The detective placed a plastic bag on the table inside. It was a burnt piece of fabric and a lighter. "We found this near your property line," he said. "The gas traces match what was used to start the fire." Marcus leaned forward. "Does it mean you know who did it?" The detective looked thoughtful. "Not yet. But the footprints we found, they were from women's shoes. Expensive ones." Marcus's heart stopped for a moment. He remembered Karen's fancy heels, the same ones clicking on the courtroom floor. The detective continued, "We're running forensic tests. If we get fingerprints, we'll know soon." For the first time in weeks, Marcus felt a small spark of hope. He looked at the photo of his burnt house pinned on the wall, and then at the evidence bag. Meanwhile, as Karen sat at home, sipping coffee and reading the morning newspaper, the headline read, "HOA dispute turns legal. Black homeowner faces fire insurance denial." She smiled again, proud of her performance. But her peace didn't last long. Her phone rang. A deep voice spoke. "Ms. Lewis, this is Detective Harris. We need you to come to the station for a few questions." Her hand froze. "Me? Why?" she asked. "Routine follow-up," he said. "It won't take long." She hung up slowly, staring at the wall. For the first time, she felt her heart race, not from anger, but from fear. The game she thought she was winning had just turned against her. Karen sat in her car outside the police station, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. She told herself to stay calm. "It's just a few questions," she thought. "They have nothing on me." But deep down, fear was crawling up her spine like cold water. Inside the station, Detective Harris was waiting. His office was plain, just a desk, a few files and photos pinned to the wall. He looked at Karen and smiled politely. "Good morning, Ms. Lewis. Please have a seat." Karen sat down, pretending to be relaxed. "I'm happy to help, officer," she said softly. Harris nodded and opened a file. "We've been re-examining evidence from the Green fire. We found some new materials near the scene." He paused. Do you know anyone who owns a pair of heels like these? He slid a photo across the desk. It was a close-up of shoe prints. Thin heels. Expensive design. Karen's eyes twitched. No, I don't recognize those, she said quickly. The detective didn't react. Interesting. We checked your HOA photos from the last meeting. You were wearing the same type that night. Karen's throat went dry. She tried to laugh. Detective, are you suggesting I had something to do with that fire? That's ridiculous. Harris leaned forward. His voice was calm but sharp. We're not suggesting anything yet, but the evidence is getting clearer. He closed the file. We'll be in touch. Karen stood up, forcing a smile. Of course, officer. I hope you find whoever did it. Then she walked out, her heels clicking nervously on the floor. That evening, Marcus sat on his apartment balcony, looking at the night sky. It was the same sky he used to see from his old house, but now it felt empty. His daughter Mia slept inside, hugging a stuffed bear someone had donated. He was tired, but he wasn't broken. His phone buzzed. It was Detective Harris. Mr. Green, I think we're close. The evidence points to someone who knew you and who had access to your property. Marcus's heart started to race. Do you mean someone from the HOA? Exactly, Harris said. Someone with a personal motive. Marcus closed his eyes. He could still hear Karen's voice in his memory, complaining, shouting, insulting. She hated me, he whispered, Harris said. Don't worry. We'll get her. But we need more proof before we can arrest her. Meanwhile, Karen's world was beginning to fall apart. She tried to act normal at HOA meetings, smiling and gossiping as usual. But she could feel everyone watching her differently. Rumors had started. Someone mentioned seeing her outside late that night. Someone else said they heard her arguing with Marcus about his house color days before the fire. Karen's fake smile faded. The walls were closing in. At night, she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the fire, the orange glow, the screams, the smell of smoke. She woke up sweating, shaking, whispering, "It wasn't my fault. He made me angry. He broke the rules." Her guilt was turning into paranoia. She started checking her windows, afraid someone might be watching her. Then, one morning, she walked outside and saw something terrifying on her doorstep, a small envelope with no name. Inside was a printed photo. It was her. Standing in the rain that night, holding a gas can, her hand started to shake. Who took this photo? She looked around, but the street was empty. She ran inside and locked the door. Her breath came fast and uneven. No, this can't be happening. She called the HOA president, trying to sound normal. Tom, have you heard anything about the investigation? Yeah, Tom said carefully. Detectives were asking about you, Karen. Something about security cameras? Karen froze. Security cameras? Yeah, Tom said. Apparently, a traffic cam caught someone walking across the street with a can that night. The line went silent. Karen hung up slowly. Her world spun. The walls she built with lies were starting to crumble. She paced the room, thinking fast. If they find the footage, I'm done. But she didn't know one thing. Detective Harris already had that footage, and he was waiting for the right moment. That night, he called Marcus again. We got her on camera, he said quietly. It's blurry, but it's enough to question her again. Marcus looked at his daughter sleeping peacefully. For the first time since the fire, he smiled. The truth was finally catching up to Karen Lewis, and soon, her perfect world would burn, just like the house she destroyed. Morning sunlight slipped through the blinds of the police station as Detective Harris poured himself another cup of coffee. He hadn't slept much, not since he saw that footage. The blurry video showed a woman about Karen's height, walking across the street that rainy night, carrying a red gas can. The image wasn't perfect, but it was enough to open a door. He called his partner, Officer Lena. We need to bring her in, he said. Lena nodded. Karen Lewis. Yes. And this time, we don't ask. We interrogate. At the same time, Marcus was preparing for another long day in court. The lawsuit was still ongoing, but now he had hope. He had faith that the truth was finally finding its way out. He dressed in a simple gray suit, the same one he wore to job interviews years ago. As he looked at himself in the mirror, he whispered, "You've survived the fire, Marcus. Now survive this." When he arrived at the courthouse, whispers followed him. People had heard about the investigation. They were starting to wonder if Marcus wasn't the one to blame after all. And across the hall, Karen sat waiting with her lawyer, her face pale, her hands trembling slightly. Later that afternoon, Karen was called into the police station for a few clarifications. She smiled politely, pretending everything was fine. But as she entered the interrogation room and saw the photos spread across the table, her smile disappeared. Detective Harris began, "Ms. Lewis, thank you for coming again. We have a few new details to discuss." Karen crossed her arms. "Of course. I'm happy to help." Harris turned a monitor toward her. "Do you recognize this footage?" The video played a figure in a raincoat, walking toward Marcus's house. The timestamp matched the night of the fire. Karen's eyes darted to the floor. "That could be anyone," she said. "It's raining. It's dark. You can't see clearly." Harris didn't answer. Instead, he placed another photo on the table, the gas can found behind her fence. "We checked the serial number. It was sold at the hardware store near your house. We also found your fingerprint on the handle." Karen's breath caught. Her lips trembled. That's not possible. I bought gas for my lawnmower." "Really?" Harris asked calmly. "Your HOA gardener said you haven't mowed your lawn in months." Karen's mask was cracking. Her voice turned sharp. "You're twisting things. You have no proof." Harris leaned forward. "You started that fire, Miss Lewis, because you hated Marcus Green. You wanted to punish him for not following your rules. But you didn't expect him to survive, did you?" Karen slammed her hand on the table. "You don't understand?" "People like him." She stopped herself. The silence was heavy. Harris stared at her, disappointment in his eyes. "People like him?" he repeated quietly. Karen looked away. She realized what she'd just said. Meanwhile, Marcus was driving home when his phone rang. It was Harris. "Marcus, we got her," she just confessed. Marcus pulled over. For a moment he couldn't speak. The noise of passing cars faded as relief washed over him. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for believing me," Harris said. She faced charges for arson, hate crime, and attempted murder. "You'll get justice." Marcus looked at the sky, the same sky that once watched his home burn. Now, it felt lighter. But while the police were preparing the arrest papers, Karen was falling apart. She sat alone in her house, surrounded by photos of her perfect life, the garden awards, HOA certificates, the smiling portraits. All lies. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her hair was messy, her eyes red. She whispered it wasn't supposed to go this far. "I just wanted to teach him a lesson." Her phone buzzed again, a voicemail from Detective Harris. "Ms. Lewis, you are required to report to the station tomorrow morning. We have a warrant." Karen dropped the phone. The world spun around her. Outside sirens wailed in the distance. This time, they weren't heading for Marcus's house. They were coming for her. Rain poured over Willow Creek again, just like the night of the fire. The streets were wet, quiet, and heavy with tension. This time, however, the flames were gone, replaced by flashing red and blue lights outside Karen Lewis's house. Detective Harris stepped out of his car, umbrella in hand. "Is she inside?" he asked the officers. One of them nodded. "Yes, sir. She's been sitting by the window for an hour. Hasn't moved." Harris sighed. "All right. Let's do this properly." He walked up to the front door and knocked 3 times. "Ms. Lewis, it's Detective Harris. We have a warrant for your arrest."
"Oh."
There was silence. Then the sound of slow footsteps. Karen opened the door. Her eyes were tired, her face pale. She looked like a completely different person. Not the proud HOA member who used to command her neighbors, but a broken woman. Karen Lewis Harris said clearly, "You're under arrest for arson, property destruction, and attempted murder." She didn't fight. She simply nodded, whispering, "I knew this day would come." At the police station, she sat in the interrogation room, staring at her hands. Her fingers trembled as she twisted the silver ring she always wore. The walls felt smaller now. The air was colder. Detective Harris entered with Officer Lena. They placed a recorder on the table. "Karen," Harris began softly, "we already have enough evidence to charge you. But if you want to explain yourself, now's your chance." Anne didn't look up. "What's the point?" "Right. Everyone already hates me." Harris leaned forward. "Maybe, but the truth still matters." Karen exhaled slowly, then spoke in a low voice. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that. I just wanted to scare him. I was angry. He painted his door red. He built a new porch. He ignored the HOA letters. I felt powerless in my own neighborhood." Her voice cracked. "That night, I had too much wine. I took the gas can from my garage. I thought I'd burn just the porch, not the whole house. But the fire, it spread too fast." She covered her face with her hands. "When I saw the flames, I ran. I wanted to call for help, but I panicked. And when I saw him and his daughter alive, I lied. I lied to everyone." Harris listened quietly. Lena wrote every word down. Karen looked up, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean to hurt that little girl. I swear." Harris stood. "You almost killed them both, Karen, because of your hate. Because of your pride," she whispered. "I know." Meanwhile, Marcus was at the courthouse when he got the news. His lawyer approached him with a relieved smile. She confessed, "Marcus, it's over." Marcus felt his knees weaken. He sat down on the wooden bench, staring at his hands. The pain, the anger, the sleepless nights, all of it suddenly hit him at once. "Justice," he said quietly. Finally, he looked at Mia, who was coloring in her sketchbook beside him. "Daddy, can we have a new house soon?" she asked. Marcus smiled faintly. "Yes, baby, we will." 2 days later, the trial began. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, neighbors, curious faces. Karen sat in the defendant's seat wearing a plain gray suit. Her lawyer spoke softly, asking for mercy, calling it a mistake fueled by emotion. But when Marcus took the stand, the room went silent. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. He simply told his story, how he saved his daughter, how he lost everything, and how he saw the same woman who destroyed his home walk into the courtroom. Days later, pretending to be innocent, when he finished, you could hear a pin drop. The judge looked at Karen. "Do you have anything to say before sentencing?" Karen stood slowly. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaking. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wish I could take it back." The judge nodded grimly. "You can't undo fire, Ms. Lewis. You can only face it." As she was led away in handcuffs, Marcus didn't feel victory. He felt peace, the kind that comes after a long storm. Outside the courthouse, the sun finally broke through the clouds, for the first time since that terrible night. Marcus smiled, not because justice was done, but because he and Mia finally had their tomorrow back. 6 months had passed since the trial. The town of Willow Creek looked peaceful again, clean streets, green lawns, and houses shining under the morning sun. But for Marcus Green, nothing felt the same. He and his daughter Mia now lived in a small rental home on the edge of town. It wasn't fancy, but it was safe. The walls smelled of new paint, and the garden was full of little flowers that Mia planted herself. Every morning, Marcus would watch her water them, smiling softly. "Daddy," she asked one morning, "will we ever go back to our old house?" Marcus paused. "No, sweetheart," he said gently. "That house is gone. But you know what? We'll build a new one, better and stronger." Mia smiled, holding his hand. "Then I'll paint my room purple this time," he laughed. "You can paint it any color you want." Across town, Karen Lewis sat alone in a gray prison cell. The days felt endless. The walls were cold, the lights always too bright. She used to be the woman who controlled everything, the one who gave orders, set rules, judged others. Now, she had nothing but time to think. Every night, she replayed that moment, the fire, the scream, the face of a little girl she almost destroyed. The guilt was heavier than the chains on her wrists. One evening, she received a letter. It was from Marcus. She stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside, the message was short: "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I don't want to carry hate anymore. You burned my house, but you won't burn my peace. Marcus. Karen read it again and again, tears falling onto the paper. She whispered to herself, "He's a better person than I'll ever be," for the first time. She truly understood what she had done, not just to Marcus, but to herself. Meanwhile, Marcus started a community project, Rebuild Willow Hope, to help victims of fires and disasters get back on their feet. People from all over the town joined in. Even some who once stayed silent during his struggle came forward to help. Local reporters covered the story. "A man who lost everything is now helping others start again," one article said. During an interview, Marcus spoke calmly. "You can rebuild a house with wood and nails, but rebuilding trust that takes love, patience, and forgiveness." His words touched many hearts. One afternoon, Marcus visited the empty land where his old house once stood. It was quiet now, just grass and the wind. He stood there, holding Mia's hand. "This is where it all began," he said softly. Mia looked up. "Are we going to build here again, Daddy?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, right here. Because this time, the fire won't win." He knelt beside her, showing her the small sketch of their new home, simple, bright, with a big garden in front. Mia giggled. "Can we put a swing too?" "Of course," he said. They stood there together, watching the sunset over the empty lot, a symbol of endings and beginnings. Weeks later, as construction began, the community came to help. Neighbors who once ignored Marcus now worked beside him. Some brought tools, others brought food. Everyone wanted to be part of the new start. And when the first wall of the new house was raised, Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. In his mind, he saw flames again, but this time they didn't burn. They glowed like light, like hope. Back in prison, Karen looked out the window of her cell. A small bird landed on the bars. She smiled faintly. Maybe forgiveness really could change something, even for her, for the first time in months. She whispered a quiet prayer. "I hope he's happy." When Marcus and Mia finally moved into their new home, the whole town came to celebrate. Children ran through the yard, laughter filled the air, and music played softly. Marcus stood on the porch, looking at the sky, the same sky that once watched his world burn. But this time it was different. There was no smoke, no fire, just peace. He whispered, "We made it, Mia. We made it home." And as the camera fades out, Marcus's voice echoes softly. "You can lose everything, your home, your job, your peace. But as long as you don't lose your heart, you can rebuild anything."